Sound matters. Be heard. Welcome to the podcast where you get exclusive behind-the-scenes tips to make your own show sound truly spectacular. This is Podtastic Audio.
Hey, what's happening? How are you doing? How's your podcast coming along? I am Chris, and I am from the original Chris and Christine Show podcast. You can find out every single thing you want to know about that show on over on my website, which I created at chrisandchristineshow.com. And just in case you're wondering, hey, Chris, you haven't done an episode on over at the Chris and Christine Show in a little while now. What's going on? Well, Christine has been very, very busy traveling around and doing wedding events like every single weekend for the last 3 months. So hopefully soon here, we'll get her back in the studio to create new episodes for you. Check that out. In fact, we have a guest scheduled to come by tomorrow as I record this, so we'll see how that goes. But here on Podtastic Audio, where I'm designing this show to help you create and design a better sounding podcast for your show. And no matter how you do your podcast, you have fun. You go ahead and keep on doing whatever it is you're doing. If it's working for you and you're satisfied with the results that you're producing and the show that you're creating, basically, if you are a fan of your own show and you really do enjoy listening to your show, and you're saying, you know what, man, this show is great. I love the content we make. I love the show. It sounds amazing. Then keep on doing it. Then congratulations. It's a successful show because it's not always about the downloads. It's not always about making money. Sometimes having fun and enjoying the content and enjoying the ride of creating an amazing podcast can be just as rewarding as making some cash with your podcast. So congratulations. If you're having fun, you're doing an awesome job. Keep it up. Congratulations. So when it comes to recording your podcast, whether you do a video show with Zoom or with StreamYard or any of those kind of tools, and it's more like a video style show for like YouTube, maybe Instagram Live, or maybe you do the audio for your podcast or TikTok or whatever you do. You know, I just recently did a survey myself, and I was very shocked to find out what the answer was. And in this survey, I found out that 46% of all podcasters, at least the ones that I surveyed, 46% do not do this one key thing to help you get good audio for your show. What do you think that one thing is? Okay, I'll give you a clue. If you do not do this one thing, it can cost you time and money and energy working on editing your podcast later. This one thing can save you time and money and energy in the editing process. What is it? What could it possibly be? And also on this show today, I'm going to show you a free tool to eliminate bad audio and fix bad audio for free. So think of like a one-stop shop to fix your bad audio. I have examples that I used with my iPhone in the worst possible place to make a podcast. I did it, and I'm going to show you a clip of that and a clip of how I fixed it coming up on this episode. Hey, you know, speaking of fixing things, I wish I could fix some of the podcasts that I've listened to. Holy crap, I don't know what is going on. It seems like people don't listen back to their podcast, or if they do, they must crank their headphones up full blast to really understand it, because I'll be listening to one show, it'll sound great, like a really well-polished show. It'll be at the correct loudness level, and then I'll go to another amateur show, and I've got to crank this thing almost full blast just to really understand what they're saying. And then you'll have somebody else talking that's really quiet, and you're like, what they even say? And then somebody else comes in, they're blasting the speakers back and forth. Come on, this is not rocket science. It's very simple things that you can do today for free that are super easy to fix these things, and they'll take you like literally seconds to do. One of them is adjusting the volume to the correct LUFS level. Now, what is LUFS and how does it work? It stands for Loudness Units Full Scale. In other words, When you play your podcast, the loudness of that episode is consistent at that certain level. Now, what level is that? It's measured in negative numbers. So, according to the old googly web, it looked up, it said for streaming podcasts that it recommends it being at negative 16 LUFS. Now, how do you find this feature to change the LUFS settings on your audio workstation? Here I'm using Audacity because it's totally free, and the chances are you're probably using it right now. So if you go under the effects section, I believe it is, I don't know if I can do this live when I'm recording this, but yeah, it's under the effects section. You go down to volume and compression, and then it opens another window, and in there you go to loudness normalization. Now, once you have selected the track you want to bring up to the level of negative 16 LUFS, you just set it to that negative 16 and you're good to go. But you can go negative 14, might be a little too loud, or negative 18. Really play around with it. It's your show. You can do it however you want to do it. But if you do this simple little thing for each track, and I really hope that you have separate audio tracks for every person on your show. And if it's just you by yourself, even better. You just click on your own track and you can do this very simply like. But if you have multiple tracks, try to get each track to be at the negative 16 LUFS. This will help level everything out. It's not an exact science, but it will help make sure that one person isn't really loud and the other person's really soft. It kind of will balance them out somewhat for the most part. Now, another way to really do this is if you're in Audacity like I am right now, on the very left side where it has the audio track for the track you're on, there is a gain for the actual decibel level. You can increase or decrease the gain for each track individually. So you can kind of play around that way to kind of at least balance out the audio so one person isn't really quiet and the next person isn't really loud. This is a really simple and easy trick to make sure the audio levels from person to person sound a little bit, at least at the same volume level. Now, I might go into a deep dive about LUFS later in another episode, but I just wanted to give you a basic understanding of how to access it and how it can possibly adjust and make your show sound a little louder than it normally does if you have one of those like really quiet sounding podcasts. So 46% of podcasters do not use this one simple and easy feature that is built into almost every single audio interface available. Every mixer has this feature, and almost every decent USB microphone also has this feature built right into it. And yet, a lot of podcasters do not take advantage of this option. What could it possibly be? Why would 46% of people not do this? I'm scratching my head right now because I've always have done this. But that's just me because I have a radio background and I love audio and I love creating audio and making audio and recording stuff. So when it comes to making podcasts, there's one thing that I think every podcaster really has to think about before they press record, and that is capturing good audio. Capturing audio? What are you talking about, Chris? How do I capture audio? It's like a little munchkin running around. I got to capture him and hold him hostage. Capturing audio? Well, if you think about your microphone, it actually is capturing your audio and transforming it into a digital signal when it finally gets to your computer or your DAW or however you're recording your podcast. It's physically breaking it down in little waveforms, and it's breaking it down and actually saving it as a digital audio form. In fact, right now as I record this, I'm talking right into my microphone. It's going from the microphone, which is an XLR, going through a interface, which is the Rodecaster Pro 2. And then from there, it's plugged directly into my computer and it's getting put down into Audacity live so I can play around with this and perhaps take out some mistakes live on the fly like I did, which is also one of the benefits of doing a solo show like I'm doing right now. Now, when it comes to capturing your audio for your podcast, you want to make sure that your podcast sounds great and your audio sounds amazing at the source from your mouth to your microphone. You want to make sure that it sounds amazing right then and there, because what happens is that, just say you did an entire half an hour monologue for your podcast, whatever it possibly could be. You did it, and then you find out later as you open up the audio and listen back, you're like, what happened to the microphone? Why does it sound so bad? And why is there a buzzing or something? Why is there a crackling sound in the audio? Why does it sound like crap? What is going on? And then you spend so much time either re-recording your entire session, or you try to find every plugin, every tool, everything you can figure out how to do to fix that bad audio. But what about getting good audio in the first place? You would think that would be the goal. Start with good audio and you will have good audio to work with. It's much easier, let me tell you, to edit good audio than it is to edit garbage. I mean, I always say I can take bad audio and make it sound decent. I can make decent audio sound good, and I can make good audio sound great, but I cannot make bad audio sound amazing. You can't go from bad to excellent with editing. You just can't. You can do your best and you might make it sound decent, but if decent is basically now the benchmark of what you're going to get with your podcast because you recorded it in this way, then that's all you're going to have to do. And that's all you're going to have to deal with. So when I ran this survey, I just, for some reason, just assumed that almost every podcaster, like almost everybody that I ever ran into, because I was doing this like way back in the day. And when we first started, I was doing it this way. And I just thought everybody did it this way because that's when I did some research on how to podcast and how to record audio correctly. It always mentions to do this. But then I realized that some people just can't do it. They just can't get over it. They can't figure it out, or they don't like doing it and they just don't do it this way. And what I'm talking about is this. 46% of podcasters do not listen to themselves while they record their podcast live. What? You can do that? Yes. And almost every audio interface has that feature. Now, this depends. You really have to have equipment with a low latency, and I'm talking really low. Otherwise, you're going to hear an echo in your ears when you talk. And when it goes to your ears, you might hear a slight delay. I mean, super slight delay, but it's going to be so much that you're going to cause you to slur your words and slow down to catch up with what you're hearing in real time. And I know a lot of podcasters say that they don't like the way their voice sounds. They don't like hearing their voice. Yeah, I get it. You know, you kind of have to get used to it after a while. If you do enough episodes and you record enough, you eventually start to appreciate your voice and you realize when your voice sounds good and you realize when your voice sounds bad. But when you listen live, like I am right now, listening live to my own voice as I record this, you will hear any problems in real time as you record your podcast. Now, the advantage of that is you can stop what you're doing, you can adjust and fix before you finish your half an hour podcast. Because heaven forbid you went through the entire podcast recording and it sounded like crap because you didn't realize something was wrong with your microphone. Or perhaps you didn't realize you were too far away. By listening live in real time, I actually can hear what it's doing in real time. And that way, if I pull away from the microphone or if I bump it or if there's something happening that the microphone is hearing, I hear it live in real time, which causes me to stop what I'm doing and cut it out and fix it on the spot live. That way, it speeds up the editing process. Like I said, if you have good audio from the start, going into editing is a total breeze. We're talking about speeding up your process here. Get good audio, and then you'll have good audio, and you will not have to waste time and money. If you pay for like an editor to fix this stuff, they may not be able to fix it. And all you have to do is just listen back live to yourself while you record. Now, on the Rodecaster Pro, because it's a cool, fancy toy, it's got all kinds of buttons and knobs and stuff, and there's multiple microphone inputs and multiple headphone jacks on there. So each person can have their own volume knob. If they don't like hearing themselves as much, they can turn it down, turn it up, whatever you want to do. Now, let's say you have a microphone like the famous Blue Yeti microphone. Oh, everybody loves a good Blue Yeti. So on the Blue Yeti, from what I can tell, I believe there is a headphone jack right on that thing for live monitoring. You plug your headphones in. Hopefully, they're over their ear, pretty snug headphones, but it could be earbuds too, whatever. The point is this. It's basically so you can hear what you're saying into the microphone. You can hear what the microphone is hearing live in real time. That's what that is for. Now, let's just say you got an Audio-Technica microphone or a Samsung Q2U. I love a good Samsung Q2U. And by the way, they're a lot cheaper than the Blue Yeti, and they sound a lot better than the Blue Yeti. They're about $50, maybe $70 for a Samsung Q2U. I mean, I would give these away if I could. Let me tell you, they're so amazing. And on the bottom of that thing, there's a headphone jack. It's like the same headphone jack you'd have for the old Walkmans back in the day or the old iPods back in the day. I think it's a small little 3mm plug-in jack, like typical headphone jack. You plug it in the bottom of that thing, and you can listen to everything you're saying live in real time. And also, if you're doing a Zoom show or any of those kind of shows where you're talking to somebody over the web, you can hear them too. So you hear them and you hear yourself. So you'll be able to tell whether or not your audio is sounding great from the start. It makes so much easier in editing. I'm telling you, you will save so much time if you listen to your own audio while you're recording it. That's how all the professionals do it. That's how they do it in radio. That's how they do it in broadcasting. And I suggest that you just give it a try. I know it's probably new. It's probably a weird thing because I don't like hearing my voice. Yeah, I always listen to my voice in the editing anyways. Okay, whatever, I get it. But just give it a shot. Let me tell you, you will save so much time and energy if you try it just like this. But let me tell you, you really have to have a low latency device. So if you don't have a low latency device, then it's not going to work for you at all. It's going to be super echo. Like if you, for example, were talking into a USB microphone that was plugged into your computer, USB port, and then you had your headphones plugged into your headphone jack on your computer, and you kind of set it up to listen back live through that, there's a good chance you're going to get some echo in the recording in your ears as you talk, and it's going to totally throw you off. Don't do that. Don't do that at all. If you have a low latency device, the Zoom PodTrack P4 can do this. Like I said, the Rodecaster can do this. A lot of microphones can do this. Give it a shot. And see what you think. And I am telling you, by hearing it, you're going to be able to fix things on the fly and understand what it sounds like live in real time. It's amazing. Check it out. Okay, let's just pretend you didn't take my advice and you recorded your show and you're like, oh God, it sounds like crap. How am I going to fix this thing? What am I going to do? Because I'm kind of stressed out. I got to get this podcast out by tomorrow, and I'm not going to record this entire thing like all over again. I ain't got time for that. No one's got time for that. What if I told you there was a way to fix that with one easy click? And what if I told you it's free? That's right. As of right now, I'm recording this in early May, and the Adobe from the famous Adobe suite, Adobe Audition, Adobe, Photoshop, Adobe, all the great Adobe stuff, they have an AI podcast audio enhance tool. It's called podcast.adobe.com/enhance. I'll put a link to it into the show notes of this episode. And basically all you do is you take your audio file. It can be a WAV. It can be an MP3. As far as I know, MP3 or WAV files only. And you drag and drop that file onto the little thing on their website. And it says here, it fixes the audio, takes away the echo, makes it sound great. All the things you really want to take care of with a podcast if you have horrible audio. So I have 2 sample clips here. Now, they're actually the same clip, but one of them I recorded before I enhanced it. And the second clip is going to be the after I enhanced it clip. So here is the very first clip recorded on my iPhone in the worst possible situation. Okay, we are recording this in the laundry room on my iPhone 11. Yeah, I got an old phone. What are you going to do? and it's recording with the Recorder HQ app. I'm using it right now. It's at 24-bit, 48 hertz. We're recording with my iPhone, holding it probably a good foot away from my mouth in the laundry room, which there's a lot of reverb, echo, a lot of tile, walls, laundry machines, the usual kind of stuff. Probably not the best place to record anything really, but I want to give an example of what this sounds like in the raw form, probably recording in like the worst possible way I could find to show you what this can sound like before we run it through the cool new toy and see if we can fix this. Let's see if we can fix this audio. Okay, I know you're thinking that audio sounds pretty bad. I mean, who would record a show on their iPhone in the laundry room with a bunch of reverb stuff happening and it's bouncing audio all over the place? Echo City. Now, I'm going to drop this audio file into the Adobe suite of the Adobe Podcast Enhance, and I'm going to see what this thing can physically do. And here is the finished product. Okay, we are recording this in the laundry room on my iPhone 11. Yeah, I got an old phone. What are you going to do? And it's recording with the Recorder HQ app. I'm using it right now, and it's at 24-bit, 48 hertz. We're recording with my iPhone, holding it probably a good foot away from my mouth in the laundry room, which there's a lot of reverb, echo, a lot of tile, walls, laundry machines, the usual kind of stuff. Probably not the best place to record anything really, but I want to give an example of what this sounds like in the raw form, probably recording in like the worst possible way I could find to show you what this can sound like before we run it through the cool new toy and see if we can fix this. Let's see if we can fix this audio. Well, that is not too bad. It sounds pretty good. Actually, I did adjust both of those clips to the 16 LUFS, so they do sound very similar. But I did notice with the Adobe software, it did bring it down a little bit. It was a little quieter than the original file. So I think what it does is some of that echo sound on the tips of the spikes of the audio waves, it really clips all that out, I think, and then kind of like focuses more on the bassier stuff, or at least it adds a little bass to it, and that's probably what it does. So I'm telling you for free. Now, the rules are this. It basically can take an MP3 or WAV audio file. You are limited to 500 megabytes file size, and according to this, you are limited to 3 hours of upload per day. Now, I don't know how many podcasts you do a day. I mean, I do one a week, but let's just say you were doing editing for other people and you had multiple shows you were editing. The way I would use this tool would be like this, is that I would kind of use it to kind of polish things off before I run it through any kind of leveling software, or I usually do the levelator at the very end to kind of get a nice balance. And then I set it to 16 LUFS after that, which I think levelator kind of sets it at 16 LUFS anyways. So that's what I would do. And that is the very free and very free for right now, I should say, tool from Adobe. So if I were you, I would sign up for it right now and just have it. Even if you don't think you're going to need it, just get it, because you just never know. You might have a show or a guest or somebody that sounds horrible, because when you do podcasting, you have a guest on, and you never know what kind of equipment they're going to have. They could be doing the Blue Yeti show from the next room or whatever and sound Echo City, or maybe even a laptop with just laptop sound. You can drop their audio, at least their side of the conversation, into this thing, and you'll somewhat fix their audio, at least make it enjoyable. And that's really the goal when it comes to creating good audio for your podcast. You want to make it sound enjoyable enough to where the listener can really consume your content and not have to worry about the bad audio. The bad audio is not even a thing. You see, bad audio can take a person out of the podcast. It can be like, I don't know, I can't understand it. I'm straining to listen to it. It's making me work to listen. If you got to make your listener work to hear your show, they may turn your show off and say, nope, not for me. So you go on out there and make an amazing sounding podcast that delivers value. Hey, thank you once again for listening to this episode today. You know what every single podcaster really needs, other than a microphone, of course? Yeah, it's probably a website. My website is podtasticaudio.com. Very simple. Go ahead and check that out. I got all kinds of past episodes over there, information, a way to contact me. and I will catch you on the next episode.